witness the absolute state of the American left. How many young men have shit posted online? How many young men joined fucking Blackwater, Emma? For those who don't watch the news, Graham Platner is attempting to run for the Senate seat in the state of Maine. He has the endorsement of prominent Democrats like pseudo-socialist fraud Bernie. Trump did a good job on the border, Sanders.
You don't have any borders, then you don't have a nation, right? In a sense. So has historically the United States done well on the Democrats and Republicans in protecting the border? The answer is no. Trump did a better job. I don't like Trump, but we should have a secure border, and it ain't that hard to do. Biden didn't do it. Those before him did not do it. We should have a secure border, period.
He is also a former Marine who served 4 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, got an SS tattoo to celebrate, and then in his mid-30s joined Constellus, formerly called Blackwater at the age of 34 in 2018, to relive the glory days in Afghanistan. Just by way of emphasis, you heard me correctly, Graham Platner was in the mercenary group Blackwater in 2018, just 7 years ago, and prominent American leftists, self-styled socialists even, want him to have political power. Are we serious? Of course we're not. Which is why in this video I'm going to leave aside the question of justice. I'm not going to bother interrogating whether or not a man who took part in multiple illegal invasions in Iraq and Afghanistan voluntarily for money, who took pride for his part in destroying the lives of other human beings, and who commemorated his grisly achievements with a tattoo calling back to the most infamous organization of collective murder in world history. But calm down, he got it covered over with a Nordic tattoo, the Nazis hated Nordic symmetry, and remembered it so fondly that he went back for more at the age of 34 as a mercenary, can plausibly be argued to have reformed and redeemed himself to the point that it is appropriate for leftists in America to support him in a bid for real political power in the state of Maine, and for influential leftist media figures to platform him and help raise his profile to benefit his campaign. By the way, the answer to that question is no. But again, we're leaving that aside. Here are 3 reasons, 3 completely morally disinterested reasons for why you should not put up with anyone trying to bully you into thinking that you have to support Graham Platner, either because he's a supposed lesser of 2 evils compared to the opposing candidate, or because his tours in Afghanistan and Iraq were so long ago, he's definitely a changed man by now, despite the fact that he was working in Blackwater in Afghanistan again a mere 7 years ago. Like, we aren't talking about someone who was a Marine decades ago and then worked in a soup kitchen. He went back right before COVID. But I digress. Number 1, you are setting yourselves up for future betrayal. You will see prominent leftists like Hassan Piker argue that you should vote for Graham Platner despite his history, which it can't be repeated enough, is a history of being involved in war crimes of which Graham was so proud that he got an SS tattoo to commemorate it, because he supports good policies like Medicare for all, and that the average American just won't be receptive to criticisms of the American military.
I do think it's good that, by and large, liberals are defending him instead of immediately leaning into the alternative. Liberals did not immediately look at someone like Graham Platner and go, I fucking hate this guy. This guy is saying he wants Medicare for all. We can't have Medicare for all in this country. What are you talking about? We need to keep having privatized healthcare in this country. That's the best possible way to go. Like that. But killing Iraqis isn't. Dude, wake up! Shut the fuck up. We are talking about the average fucking person, the average American. They do not think of this in the way that you do.
I also love the idea that Hassan Piker would dare to lecture his viewers about what the average American would think. Even if he is completely right, which he probably is. The giant golden ball. Okay, I'll stop. Uncle. As I was saying, this is a bad argument for the following reasons. First of all, we are all intimately experienced with fake progressives dangling progressive policies in front of American leftists like candy to get elected into office, only to then turn around and support heinous acts of mass murder to maintain access to more politically and financially lucrative sources of support afterward, and that this often takes the form of just straight up defecting to the Republican Party. I like to refer to the biblical parable of the sower here. A sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Here's the relevance. Just because Graham is saying the right things right now doesn't mean that he has changed in his mind or in his heart, nor does it mean that he won't do a total about-face in the future and leave you out to dry. Additionally, we should not anticipate that Platner will feel any sense of responsibility or loyalty to leftists who inconveniently criticized him during his campaign. He will have every emotional and practical incentive to reframe any temptation he might have in the future to betray the progressive values he espouses now as him being more pragmatic than his hysterical detractors. I'm going to refer back to my previous video, The Leftists Who Eat Their Own, where I argue, I think pretty well, why it's not a good idea to support someone with a long history of acting directly against your own most central values in the most egregious way possible. The fact of the matter is that the only things we know for certain about Graham are that he's willing to say most of the right things right now while it happens to be personally and politically convenient for him to do so, and that he has a demonstrated capacity for evil beyond the comprehension of most normal human beings. 2. He's causing division. While people like Emma Viguelin lecture us about being hall monitor liberals for refusing to accept growth from people like Graham Platner, leaving aside that the only evidence of personal growth is Graham's decision to promote himself to a position of political leadership, the condescending way in which Emma is effectively acting as a self-appointed hall monitor of the left herself by simply declaring by fiat that people who have a problem with rallying behind an enthusiastic participant in multiple illegal wars with a Nazi tattoo who was so in love with imperialism that after his service he went back again as a mercenary with Blackwater as recently as 2018 is creating far more political division within the progressive electorate than if she had simply said nothing and let Graham be rejected by the people who, supposedly, he is supposed to represent. But Emma knows how to win elections, you see. She knows the future. And she knows that by supporting Kamala Harris, I mean John Fetterman, I mean Graham Platner, I'm sorry, they all kind of blur together after a while. Let's just say by supporting war crime enthusiasts, then the left will beat Trump in 4 years and, wait, that doesn't work, does it? No, because in the course of insisting that we support war crime enthusiasts, in the vague hope that somewhere down the line it'll all work out in our favor instead of creating a culture of permissiveness, where support for war crimes and bullying people who don't support them becomes the new norm, and we're effectively set backwards several more decades, also that someone who is a member of the Democratic Party can have a turn at the wheel committing war crimes themselves instead of a Republican, you end up alienating a bunch of the people you need to get pumped up in order to win elections. Condescendingly telling progressives that they're acting like hall monitors for not wanting men who enthusiastically took part in destroying the lives of innocent people, but suddenly once they have a campaign to run, claim that they redeemed themselves in the bath one day, definitely because Graham saw the error of his ways after working for Blackwater despite the fact that he had already been a Marine on 4 tours in the Middle East before this. And certainly this has nothing to do whatsoever with Constellus suffering near bankruptcy around the time that he was working there, doesn't make the people you're condescending to want to vote for that candidate. If anything, it makes them want to give up. It makes them feel disaffected and ready to check out. Or it makes them consider ways to undermine the Democrats because it's clear that the Democrats aren't on their side. And other countries are very ready to take advantage of that, as we have seen already. Which leads me, finally, to messaging. Think about the message that is being sent when major progressive figures like Emma Viguelin and Hassan Piker and Ryan Grimm are berating leftists for not liking the idea of being represented by a mercenary with an SS tattoo. I understand the argument that voting for Kamala in the presidential election made sense despite how awful she is, because Donald Trump was going to aggressively undermine the system in a way that would undo the work of decades of legal battles, political organizing, and social activism. But bullying people to vote Kamala didn't work in the presidential election. So what does bullying progressives for not wanting to help a Blackwater mercenary get a seat in the Senate achieve in the long run, except telling those same people who value human dignity and life, that the Democrats don't stand for anything and that investment in the system is meaningless? Or perhaps make them consider, hey, why not vote against the Democrats and force them into changing their attitude, punish them for taking advantage of the two-party system to force us to vote directly against our values? Maybe even help break their stranglehold on leftist representation and possibly make way for a third party to be viable in the future if the Democrats stop winning elections. Because maybe that's not plausible right now. But if the Democrats keep losing because they're just so cynical that they can't help but alienate anyone with any passion for, well, anything, then eventually people are going to start noticing. At the core of all this is the mistaken notion, that the political battle in America is a battle over policy, and that victory for progressives is getting good, socialist-flavored policies in place. The problem is that you win those policy battles by getting the support of large numbers of people, and when you constantly telegraph to those people that their values don't matter, when you constantly telegraph to entire classes of people that their values don't matter, and that they have to vote for your party's candidates because they have no other choice, what you're actually telling them is that you're also complicit in undermining their freedom, because you only care about your party winning elections, not whether the people that get elected actually represent anybody when they do so. And this is something other agents and powers are able to make use of while having the opposite of the well-being of your country at heart. When prominent figures like Emma Viguelin make the mistake of treating the Democratic Party as a fortress that must be defended to secure victory at all costs, a fortress that only extremely wealthy or extremely deceitful or, apparently, extremely disgustingly immoral people can enter, they simultaneously declare that in their view, the people the Democratic Party ostensibly stands for are other, outside their considerations, and that not only can the Democratic Party not be expected to represent those people really at all, they must actually be kept out from the decision-making process to assure the party's success. In his book The Prince, Niccolo Machiavelli warned against relying on fortresses to maintain power in a state. Quote, "The best fortress that exists is not to be hated by the people. Although you may have fortresses, they will not save you if the people hate you. For once the people have taken up arms, they never lack for foreigners who will assist them." Unquote. When you make the party your fortress and break faith with the people, when you try to pressure people into voting for murderers and con men and abusers and mercenaries against every value the people hold because you have decided in your infinite wisdom that they have no choice, you declare that it is your privileged alliance with capital that justifies your bid for power, and that only your plans are therefore worthy to succeed, and so the people must be kept out so that they don't spoil your plans. And that makes you their enemy. Because the strength of the left, insofar as the left exists, lies in the people. It doesn't need murderers to represent it, even if the Democratic Party, which is nothing but a subtler cloak for class exploitation, does. Which brings us to the point of all this. A party exclusively controlled by a class of people who have no common cause with nor respect for the working class can never be trusted to have the interests of the working class in mind when they command them to vote for criminals, murderers, abusers, etc. If Graham Platner really wants to prove that he's a changed man, why is he running for office? He could work at a soup kitchen. He could organize a charity. He could go travel abroad to dig wells for poor villages. I don't care. Why would you ever even contemplate helping this person get into power? Why is the immediate next step from someone being a Blackwater mercenary who killed people's family members to make them the face of your movement in the Senate? How embarrassing is it for these people that this even has to be debated? And what happens when he shows his true colors in a few years? I actually rather like Emma Viguelin, so this was very disappointing for me to see. In conclusion, when someone like Emma calls you a hall monitor for not wanting to vote for a mercenary who sleeps like a baby at night knowing that they help destroy the lives of thousands of people like you, people who like you were just trying to raise their families and get by, you can tell them all of the anatomical places they can conveniently store it. As always, thank you for listening, and take care.